How can a person go from being a 33-year-old homeless addict to eventually creating multi-million-dollar businesses and just thriving in life? This is pretty much what happened to Khalil Rafati, the founder of Sunlife Organics and other businesses as well. Sunlife Organics is like a smoothie acai bowl kind of store in California, but I feel like at this point they have expanded beyond the state of California. But Sunlife Organics is how I found out about Khalil Rafati in the first place. And I'm filming this video today to share his inspirational story and encourage all of you to read his book. Actually, two books. So one of them is more like a biography book, and then the second one is about his life philosophy that he established after having been through all his experiences. I binge read both of these books in 1 week. I absolutely loved both of them, and I think they provide a lot of inspiration and motivation. So I'm filming this video not to summarize both of these books, but rather to share the lessons that I have extracted from reading them and to encourage you guys to pursue your dreams, because nothing can stop you if you're determined. Hi guys, my name is Polina, if this is your first time on my channel, and I'm really happy to see you here today. So I would love to share a quick summary of his story and then dive into my own takeaways. So yeah, I don't want to spoil the reading experience for you too much, because I highly recommend reading these books if you are looking for inspiration or any sort of motivation to build your dream life. But his story in a nutshell is that he grew up in Ohio and faced a lot of adversity in his childhood, and then he didn't even finish high school. He dropped out and then ended up moving to California, where he unfortunately became addicted to alcohol and different drugs. And then his life from that point was kind of spiraling down until he was 33 years old and he ended up being homeless, and he was also a convicted felon at that point. And he was still very much an addict. He destroyed a lot of relationships, and it was very difficult to get out of that low point. But then he eventually decided to implement sobriety in his life and change his life because he felt like he was wasting it. And then of course it took him a lot of effort to climb out of this hole that he dug out for himself. But as he was implementing this new lifestyle of nourishing himself with nutritious foods and reading a lot of positive literature and talking to people who were inspiring him, he eventually came to a point of having multiple businesses, including Sunlife Organics, and being financially independent and building beautiful friendships and relationships and living in Malibu and cherishing his present moment in Malibu. Malibu is such a beautiful place to live in, by the way. So I found both of these books so inspirational and so transformational, because it's like, if one person can do it being 33-year-old and completely pivot his life and change it for the better, any of us can do it at any moment. We sometimes, give up control and we give up responsibility and we adopt victimhood, when in reality, we can change it at any moment. It is all in our hands. So yeah, the story of being at a low point in life and then building up step by step a path to success is a story that we can learn from in so many ways. And I want to share some of my big takeaways from Khalil Rafati's experience. So one of the 3 lessons that I extracted from Khalil Rafati's story is that it is never too late. It is literally never too late to change your life. Khalil was 33 years old when, without even having a proper education, he completely transformed his life for the better. Of course, it took time and dedication. He started on this path and now he is more successful than the majority of people, which is so applaudable. So let's talk about age. What is age and what is old? Every single person has a different definition of the word old. Some people might be considered elderly by the society, but they have so much energy, they have so much zest for life, they're curious about everything, and they never even use the word old when describing themselves. On the other side of the spectrum, I have met some 20-year-olds who start to consider themselves old, and I'm like, how can a 20-year-old person or a 25-year-old person be possibly old? And some people are saying this jokingly, but in every single joke, there is a little bit part of the truth in it. And you can start to see how this person's self-image is forming with the adaptation of the word old. So I think you define old. To me, being young means being curious about life, being energetic, having zest for life, and always being open to adapt and improve and learn. And on the other hand, being old to me means kind of just giving up and being more apathetic about life and not having energy and kind of being lethargic. That to me is a broad definition of the word old. Like, I'm 27 at the moment, and I always tell my friends that I'm not going to associate with the word old until I'm at least 80 years old. At 80 years old, I will consider this word. But before then, no. Because like 27 is just the beginning of life. It is so young, it is so vital. I'm not going to even jokingly use this word. I remember I recently went to a house party in New York City, and I started talking to this girl, and she was around my age, like 26, 27. And I remember her saying something along the lines of, I don't know what I'm doing in New York. New York is for young people, and I don't know what to do here anymore because I'm not like in college anymore, and I'm getting too old for this city. And I was like, what? Like, come on, you're 26 or 27. That's not old at all. That's actually like super young. That's like the beginning of adult life, in my opinion. So just formulate your own vision of what young is and what old is. But once you define yourself as young, you understand that you have everything ahead of you. You can change anything. It's never late to start something. Look at Khalil's story. He was 33 and pretty much hopeless. But he pivoted his life and he changed it for the better, and look at where he is now. And he's a regular person just like all of us. If he can do it, we should learn from his experience. We should be inspired by his experience. I also encourage you to never give up on life, no matter what age you are. Two of the older people that I personally get inspired by are Iris Apfel and Pierre Soulages. Pierre Soulages had already passed away, but then both of them are so inspirational because Iris Apfel is like more than 100 years old, I think, and she has this active Instagram account, and she is like a fashion icon, and she creates all these mesmerizing outfits, and you're like, wow, to be over 100 years old and still be fully celebrating life, that is absolutely amazing, in my opinion. And same with Pierre Soulages. I remember like there was an exhibition at Louvre when he was turning 100 years old. So he was curating his own exhibition in Louvre as he was turning 100 years old. You know, like that to me is so inspirational. And then also there are so many architects who are like 80 years old, 90 years old, even 100 years old, and they're still designing, they're still creating, they're following their passion because they want to be building beautiful spaces. And that to me, once again, is super applaudable. Like, never be tired of life, never be bored of life, never give up on life, just keep going, like no matter what age you're in. It's only you who defines what you're limited by. So don't be limited by somebody else's definition of old. The second wonderful lesson that I learned from Khalil Rafati's experience is that everything you do matters. Every single little thing you do eventually defines your life. And if you do something repetitively, then it starts to have a profound impact on your life. So try to be more deliberate with your daily routine and reassess some of your daily habits. When I was reading Khalil's story, I was paying attention to what he was doing in order to get himself out of this deep hole that he had dug out for himself. And I was paying attention to what kind of daily habits he started implementing in order to become a better person and become more successful, more prosperous, and place himself in a better position to attain his goals. His approach was very dualistic. It was about enhancing his body, but also about rebuilding his mindset. So he himself says that he was reading a lot of positive psychology books, and he wanted to make sure that whatever information he was consuming that it was beneficial to him, that it helped him expand his mind, believe in better opportunities for him, and be open to whatever the universe was like bringing into his life. So reading positive literature on a daily basis was having a profound impact on his psyche and eventually helped him to get out of this negativity cycle that some people get sucked into. One of Khalil's mentors recommended to him to stop reading news, and I fully understand why, because like a lot of media sources contain a lot of negative information that overall can start having a negative impact on your perception of life, especially if you like read it on a daily basis. So he was very mindful about what kind of information he was consuming. And same with nutrition. He became more mindful about what he was putting into his body. And from what I read, him thriving on this new nutrition regimen led him to eventually founding Sunlife Organics, because he saw what kind of impact all of these nutritious foods were making in his life. And so he wanted to extend this idea into the lives of other people too. So I find this very beautiful, to be more deliberate with what you're putting inside your body, to be more deliberate with your workouts, to be more deliberate with what kind of information you're feeding into your brain and what kind of mental image that starts to create, and whether that mental image is helping you propel in life or it is actually hindering you in terms of your growth. The third and last lesson that I want to share with you today, that I also picked up from Khalil Rafati, is you need to be proactive, and it's so important to communicate and to seek what you're after and just ask people questions. A theme that I noticed throughout Khalil's books is that he was never intimidated to ask a person, to communicate what he was after and to openly seek it. You know, he was never intimidated by anyone. In one of the stories he shares in his book, he says that he just randomly approached Fred Siegel because he saw him in Malibu, and Fred Siegel is a successful business owner in California. And after he approached him, he just randomly asked him for a job on the spot. I find it so cool how the person can be so straightforward and not be embarrassed about asking for something like that outright. I feel like most of us are so much more timid and more shy. We never want to inconvenience someone, and I feel like it's also more applicable to women than to men, because women sometimes are almost like preconditioned to just be mindful, to be very accommodating, and intruding on someone and interrupting someone's conversation would be considered like a bad kind of behavior. So sometimes we avoid asking what we're looking for because we have all these mental preconceptions of like, oh, this is inappropriate, we shouldn't do this. But from Khalil's books, you should be communicating, and you should be seeking, and you should be asking. Don't be afraid to email someone who is an inspirational person to you. Don't be afraid to approach someone if you see them. Don't be afraid to strike up conversation. And maybe this lesson is the hardest lesson out of the 3 that I'm giving in this video. But I think it goes such a long way, because people usually do not have telepathy. They don't know what you're thinking. They don't know what you're looking for. The only way for you to express what you're looking for is to communicate it verbally or communicate it in a written manner, but somehow communicate it. Don't be afraid to set up a coffee date. Don't be afraid to set up a phone call with someone who inspires you. Don't be afraid to do any of those things, because you never know what is going to come out of them. From my understanding, this ability to communicate is what ultimately saved Khalil Rafati. Of course, he put so much effort into rebuilding his body and his mind, but he was also never timid. He would just approach people and communicate with them directly. And most people don't bite, so I think it is okay to be approaching people. So yes, my friends, this is the end of the video. I just want to leave you with one very profound quote that is repeated multiple times in the second Khalil Rafati's book. So the first book is called I Forgot to Die, and that's the autobiography book. And then the second book is called Remembering to Live. And in his Remembering to Live, he says multiple times, life is not a dress rehearsal. Well guys, have a wonderful day, and I hope to see you in my next video. Bye.